My teacher, Miss Whitman, didn't understand rap, but she knew writing, she knew metaphor, she knew imagery. And she said, if you could do this for rap, you could do this for writing for the school newspaper. And so being able to have an asset based lens really enabled me. So that's what I talk to the teachers about, viewing things as an asset. That's what I talk to the students about too, like having that assets and having that belief in yourself to change your current circumstances.
In today's episode, I am honored and thrilled to welcome Dr. Brandon Foster, a dynamic educator, thought leader, and advocate for systemic transformation in education. With his recent dissertation, The Arch of Progress, Dr. Foster has shared a profound journey of overcoming adversity, channeling inspiration into action, and designing innovative solutions to some of the most pressing challenges in education. His work draws upon his personal story of resilience and growth, blending his lived experiences with the theoretical insights of Napoleon Hill and the realities of the Ferguson-Florissant School District. Centered around mentoring, tutoring, and growth mindset initiatives, his dissertation serves as a blueprint for empowering students and building equitable systems. Today we'll dive into his insights, learn more about his strategic initiatives, and discuss the lessons educators and leaders can draw from his work. Dr. Foster, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's so awesome to be here. I appreciate it.
So I first off want to congratulate you. You recently graduated from Harvard University with your doctorate. I was a graduate of the Extension School, and what I can tell you from that experience is I cried every single day my last year. It was just so overwhelming, and the expectations were so high that it was very stressful. Looking back on it now, though, I see that was perseverance, that was grit. And I see that in your work. And I'm so excited that listeners are going to get to hear your story. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'd like to start by talking about your personal journey and motivation. Now, your dedication section is this deeply personal and inspiring story. How did your upbringing and lived experiences shape your approach to education and systemic reform?
Yes, and congratulations on graduating too. And I shared plenty of tears also when I was going through the final process of this, so I can appreciate it. I would like to say my lived experience is like micro, meso, macro. So from the micro state, I would say being able to be adopted, figuring out where you belong in the world, figuring out how to navigate where you belong in the world and get to where you at was something that I always had to work towards. And really having that void, asking like, well, why wasn't I kept, or why don't I have this, or always having that unknown I had to operate with. And from that part specifically, I think what helped me was the ability to be like, since I don't know my past, I don't have to let that determine my future. So it gave me that ability to dream outside my circumstances. And so as a kid, I would say, my mom is this, or my dad is this, or my mom is this, or my dad is this, so I can be this. And having that support from my adopted mom, she took me in, adopted me right away to be like, you can accomplish those things. She never went to college, but she would tell me I would go to Pepperdine. I would go to all these wonderful colleges that I never heard of. And she would instill that in me. And I think that gave me a level of perspective to try to accomplish those things. I would say from the Meso point of view, really getting to adolescence, I struggled with identity and really being who I was with the different things that I saw. I was trying to emulate what I saw on TV. I wanted to be this rapper. I thought that there was these things that I needed to do, and I didn't have a ton of positive role models in that aspect. And what I like to rephrase that is, I didn't know where the positive role models existed. They were always there, but I didn't get to see them. So when they were brought to light, I went from being a juvenile delinquent, in and out of trouble, to being in a group home where I had a mentor who believed in me and said, you're going to go to college and you're going to graduate, and put me on that path. And that really changed who I was. I also had a teacher, Miss Whitman, who would see me write raps who were terrible. And she was like, hey, if you can write raps, you definitely can write for the school newspaper, and went ahead and put me on the newspaper team. And for the first time, I got an A in a class, and that had never happened my whole K through 12 experience. And I was able to believe, okay, wow, I could learn, I could be good at school for the first time. And then from a macro perspective, taking that intuition, that leadership, that belief that I got from Fletcher Upshaw, who was a leader of the group home, along with Miss Whitman, who was that teacher who believed in me and say, I want to be the same person for kids who experience the struggles that I've experienced and let them know that they can accomplish what it is that they set their mind to. It really helped me delve into what my philosophy of education was about.
Now, you frequently quote Napoleon Hill in your work. Can you elaborate on how Hill's principles of conceive, believe, and achieve influenced your dissertation and strategic initiatives?
Yes, I like to read, and so I was going at different things, and I think it's Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, different works that Napoleon Hill had, and I read that he had interviewed 500 people, and he had the key to success no matter what. And he said this story, and Napoleon Hill has this thing called 13 Keys on Amazon that I watched, and he said, I have something that's bigger than poverty, something that's bigger than social economic status, something that's bigger than some of the challenges that you face that are guaranteed to make you successful. And I was like, I want to know what that is. Bigger than poverty, because working in schools, the first thing that sometimes happens is, well, it's social economic status that holds students back, or it's a background that holds students back. But here was somebody saying that none of that matters. You can be successful if you have those things. And he said, if you can conceive it, which means if you could go ahead and be able to dream it, and if you could believe it and in your heart have it, then you can achieve it. And when I got that, I was like, wow, that's deep and it's work for all of these business people. How do we apply that context specifically to education? And then that's what started me down the road of building that matrix to be like, if this works for 500 of the greatest businessmen and they were to accomplish great things, what if every student left knowing that whatever they could see or whatever that they could believe, they had the ability to achieve it?
Let's talk a little bit more about strategic vision and implementation. You've emphasized the importance of storytelling and leveraging personal narratives. How did you use your story to inspire both students and educators within the Ferguson-Florissant School District?
That's a great question, too. Numbers. And so when I tell my story, I was ranked 412 out of 437 students. That put me at the bottom 6% of the class. But here I was getting ready to graduate from the number one institution in the world, according to some metrics, right? Graduated high school with a 1.2 GPA, right? But was able to still get into LSU and get a degree, get into UNT Dallas and get a degree, going to Indiana University and get a degree, right? And so the essence of being able to take those numbers and what they will ideally represent and show how at the end of the day anything is possible. And what that does is, in reference to that storytelling for the students, I often go into juvenile delinquent situations. I go into some of the places where juveniles are held, and I talk to them, and I say, I was in these same walls. I know what it feels like to be 23-1, locked down for 23 hours and only have 1 hour up. I know what it feels like to be in different group homes. I know what it feels like to be in child protective services. I understand that. And on the turn of that, I understand what it feels like to take accountability, to have agency, and to transform your life so you can be positive. And that's what I talk with the students. With the staff, I let them know that if you would have looked at my transcript, Harvard University was never there. Me graduating was never there. Matter of fact, I think only 4% of students who are in the group homes ever get their bachelor's degrees. So if you see that, like, I'm the embodiment of what can happen when you have somebody positive that comes in your life and preach your brilliance and say you can make it. And one thing that really helped me with the third floor situation is the fact that some of the people who were most influential were my teachers were white females. And so many times we think that it has to be like black male to black male, right? But here are white females who are able, which are probably 75% of our teacher workforce, who was able to come in and be like, connect with me. My teacher, Miss Whitman, didn't understand rap, but she knew writing, she knew metaphor, she knew imagery. And she said, if you could do this for rap, you could do this for writing for the school newspaper. And so being able to have an asset based lens really enabled me. So that's what I talk to the teachers about, viewing things as an asset That's what I talk to the students about too, like having that access and having that belief in yourself to change your current circumstances.
You framed sixth grade as the keystone of the educational arch. What led you to focus on this grade level, and how did that focus impact your strategic decisions?
Yes. And I was lucky, to be honest. And then I broke it down even more. So when I went to Ferguson-Florissant, they have an excellent system to where their sixth grade is by themselves. They're actually in separate buildings by themselves. And doing my dissertation, I needed to have a small enough sample size to get it done through the year with a big enough problem of practice. And so when I started looking at how education is set up, when you drive to Ferguson-Florissant, or when you drive to Ferguson, you go through St. Louis. When you go through St. Louis, you see the arch. And I love history. I watched that stuff. And so I went to the arch, I went down underground, I went through this big rabbit hole on how the arch was constructed. And if you know how the arch was constructed, they had to build it side by side because
No, I had no idea.
yeah, because if you built one side like this, then it would topple over. Whereas if you build both sides at the same time, and then you put that keystone in right in the middle, then it distributed all the weight evenly so it could be that freestanding structure that it is. And so when I started looking at the pathway to what students were doing and what they were learning, I looked at kindergarten as being like the foundation in 12th grade. And what ironically is, when you look at the research, the most important grade is kindergarten because if students have a great foundation in kindergarten, it shows their life outcomes for 12th grade. And I was like, wow, look how parallel that is. Then I went to first to 11th, and then second to 10th, third to ninth, and I went so on. And then you look right in the middle with sixth grade, which is also where most students transition. And it's also the point where if you don't have a good math algebraic concept of how to do those things, then by eighth grade, you won't have the skills necessary to be able to take the higher level courses that allow you to get into schools and colleges that you want to go through. So looking at sixth grade is that key point to be like, how do we make sure that all the sixth graders have all the knowledge from K through 5 to be on grade level and then is able to take that knowledge and be successful from 7th to 12 is where I wanted to really focus that support and have that grade level really be the keystone to where all the learning meets each other.
Mentoring played a significant role in your strategic project. How did you design these programs to meet both the socio emotional and academic needs of the students?
Yes. So when I did the conceive, believe, achieve framework, where I took Napoleon Hill words and made it into a framework, I said conceive. For me to be able to conceive something, I got to see it. And for me to be able to see it, I got to have that component, that mentoring component to it. So I put conceive right underneath mentoring, and I started looking for individuals in the community who fit some of those things so they could talk to these sixth graders. So we got tremendous help. We had tremendous help with Girls in the Know. So they're a program in Ferguson, and so they had it, and I split it up to where it was girls and it was boys. So they would come in and they would talk to the girls, and we would have different people from the community at lunch on Wednesdays tell them this is what we do, this is what we have, and they can see what it was from banking to STEM to all of those different things that they could conceive and they could go back and be like, today I met an investment banker and I think that's what I want to do. And now they understand why learning is important and why math is important when they're looking at these mixed number fractions. And for the boys, I also had those same things where they got mentoring anywhere from Commander Robert Powell, who is over NASA, and he talked to him about this is what happened, this is how astronauts happen. And so really getting them to see people who look like them, people within their community who went and did great things and have that so they can aspire higher. And then I realized it's one thing to say this is what I want to become, but then you need to have the ability to actually do that. Because it's tough to say I want to be an astronaut, but you're struggling in math and you don't have nobody to help you. So the tutoring aspect was I wanted to make learning cool. And how do you do that? And how do you do it cost effectively? And so I was able to go and use high school students from 11th and 12th grade who had got A's in math and were needed community service hours and have them come work after school with the students every Wednesday. And it was dynamic because now students got to see, man, it's cool to be smart. Man, they're really working with me. It was cost effective. I just had to buy them pizza, and I'll take that, right? And so they was able to build relationships as well and be like, okay, it really matters. And then for the achieve part, it was like field trips, right? So like now you've been able to do those things. You was able to see people who look like you accomplish great things within your community. You were able to get help from students who are going through the system, and then you were able to apply that to go to different field trips. So we went to the arch. That was big. Some of the kids had never seen the arch. We did a riverboat. We was able to go to the science museum. We was able to go to, and we did an actual event to where they went in there, and Ferguson has this space complex. It's like only a couple of them, maybe 12, and they got to go in there and do a whole mission at that community center with their space. So those are some of the highlights that I thought was incredibly awesome, where students got to be a sixth grader, but not only are you a sixth grader, but you're commanding a mission on how we get to Mars or what do we do on the moon, which I thought was awesome.
So, peer tutoring is an innovative element of your project. Can you share how you implemented this model and what outcomes you observed?
What I saw was, I'm not gonna say like a reduction in behavior, right, or behavior incidents. What I'll say is a realization of who they were. So there's this project. I think she'll be great. I will put a plug in it for it. It's called Judy Tuesday. It's the Exceptional Project, right? Matter of fact, hopefully I got her book right here, right? And so it's exceptional, and it's called Black Man Leading, Living, and Loving, right? And I'll open up a couple of the pages. And what you can see, right, it's just like people, and it was like, how do we reverse the narrative? And so, one of my favorite things that I learned when I was in Professor Henry Louis Gates' class, my favorite one, was that Frederick Douglass said, with this new medium of photography, I'm going to rewrite the narrative of what it means to be African American. He saw how powerful it was. So all his images, he might have been the most photographed person. He wanted to make sure he was pristine. He wanted to make sure that he could do those things. And so some of the work that we have to do is to reimagine or redo what the narrative is. Because to be honest, how we're portrayed in a lot of the media is not indicative of all the brilliance that we possess, and all the great things that we have done. And so being able to focus in on that, being able to be like, what does it mean to be brilliant? What does it mean to be exceptional? And so we had this debate, and I asked Judy Tuesday, and I said, would a student punch another student in the face if he thought that student was exceptional? And she counteracted and said, the real question is, would a student punch another student in the face if he thought he was exceptional? And I was like, exactly what I said. I was like, wow. And so then I started being able to be like, what do we want to do? I want students to come to school and I want students to believe in themselves, like I'm exceptional. Because when you believe that you're exceptional, when you believe that you're brilliant, your behavior changes. When I talk to you, I'm not angry because you punched a student in the face. I'm disappointed because you didn't show how brilliant and exceptional you were in that moment. And like, how do we reframe the messaging to work to help us out and for people to see the brilliance in themselves and others?
You mentioned the systemic barriers you encountered, such as the misalignment in administrative structures. How did you navigate these challenges, and what systemic changes would you prioritize moving forward?
I was blessed. I had a superstar. I know I gave you one suggestion already. If I give you one more suggestion, I won't give you no more. Dr. Joseph Davis, superintendent of Ferguson-Florissant, that's how I got there. He came to Harvard, gave an amazing presentation about how the work called him when he saw what happened. He left his post in North Carolina where he was comfortable. He was home and said, I got to get to Ferguson and I have to make an impact on kids. He's been there, I believe, 10 years. And they went from almost not accredited to accredited, did a lot of work. And I say that because he really gave me carte blanche to work hand in hand with him. And so some of the systemic challenges that I was able to see was because he was so transparent. And I don't want to say that it was misalignment. It was more along the lines of being able to identify where people needed to be and have that focus point and have clear delineation of goals. And so Missouri has like a point system to where they do all of the accreditation. And then we were able just to work and be like, who is responsible for these points? Who is responsible for these points? How do we ensure that we're getting them? And just all of the admin at Ferguson-Florissant was really helpful. And we got to go to the table and just really work on those things. And that's how we were able to align things. And also through the work, which was really focused heavily on math and how I started at. There's this thing called the Matthew effect, where if students by sixth grade don't have all the skills that they need, then they really never catch up because the work gets increasingly harder and progress. So my thought process is that's another reason why I focused on sixth grade. But being able to be like, they need to have these skills specifically, and how do we get there was something that helped me identify that part. Here goes some challenges. And in that, one of the things that we found out was in order for students to be able to score proficient on a sixth grade math test, they had to read at an advanced level because the questions were worded at an advanced level. So they might know the math, but if they're reading just on grade level, they might still struggle. So it really helped to figure out how do we improve our ELA curriculum to make sure that it has science of reading to get students where they need to be so that we're not saying students can't do it because they don't have the math skills or the comprehension skills. We making sure that they can do it because they are reading on a level to where they can fully comprehend the question, synthesize it, and answer it. And that was just one of the challenges that we ran through and we was able to see from the outcomes of the work.
In the context of Ferguson's historical and social backdrop, what unique challenges and opportunities did you face in implementing your initiatives?
Yes. Part of the thing with Dr. Davis, yeah, the board was they helped me out a lot. I think they voted 7-0 for me to be able to come in and do the work. And I think that the biggest thing, and I was able to navigate and I didn't have it, is that couldn't come in saying I have the panacea that's gonna solve all the problems or I'm gonna do this to the community. It really was like a learning and being like, how do I work with, how do I utilize myself and help us and how do I bring my expertise to the forefront. I think in the wake of the tragedy that happened with Michael Brown, you had a lot of people that came and had these ideas and then boom, they left. And so I think that was part of it that you had to be able to navigate around and being like, I'm here to help and it's sincere. And I'm not here to use this as a launching pad for my career. I just want to get in there and work. So whether I'm teaching classes in the sixth grade center, whether I'm taking over for the sixth grade center, whether I'm at the Polar Express for K through second, whatever it may be, I want to be part of that. And there was another gentleman who was the family and community director named Al Harrell, who really knew the city, understands it, and he brought me alongside to get to know people and work with people. And I think the community of Ferguson is just so great that if you have a heart, they'll help you and they'll work with you to get those things done. Because there was a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to get done, but by just picking up the phone, they was able to help me out a lot.
So, your dissertation concludes with an inspiring vision for equity and excellence in education. What advice would you give to other educators seeking to drive systemic transformation in their communities?
I'll say number one, I truly believe inspiration is more powerful than motivation. For me, motivation put the onus on me, right? Like I gotta try to motivate you. I gotta say, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do that. Where inspiration, I can say, hey, listen, I work really hard to change my mindset. You could come along and say, mindset is everything, right? And so now you might be inspired by me, or I might be inspired by you. And with that inspiration, I can do whatever I need to do to be able to get to where I need to go. So, like, how do we inspire people instead of motivating people? Inspire people so they can go and do the things that they need to. I think that's number one. And I think number two, that's really big as far as system transformation. Things that I'm inspired by, I give you one, they'll laugh at me when they see it. Ratatouille. I watched Ratatouille. I don't know if you ever saw it.
No, no, I haven't.
All right, so I'll do really quick. When you watch Ratatouille, the premise of Ratatouille is that a great cook can come from anywhere, meaning that anyone can be a great cook, right? And so I thought about that. And I said, Einstein can come from anywhere, meaning that anybody has the capacity to do that once they have certain levers and certain things. there. And so you see through the movie, you got this little mouse Remy, got a love for cooking. Of course, rats and cooking are couldn't be more diametrically opposed, right? But what it shows is that through hard work, through dedication, through having people that believe in you, anything can happen. And so you can take that and upscale it. And so that was inspiring for me. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to bring that into be able to utilize the things that inspire you in a way that's positive and give that to the students because sometimes they see those same connections and it'll be more fulfilling.
So, if you could see one systemic change implemented nationwide as a result of your work, what would it be and why?
Man, that is a great question. I really feel that literacy and figuring out how do we have it is the key. I'm probably a little bit more biased, but I've read statistics and I don't want to say them because I don't want to be misquoted. But I was seeing things that where like 8 to 10% of black and brown kids leave K through 12 post secondary ready. What's happening to the 92%? If we really work on kindergarten and making sure like kindergartens and K through 5 are leaving just being able to read proficient, I see that we'll see a lot of the outcomes that we've been able to witness that have been unfortunate really change direction. And so, how do we come together as a community, whether it's stakeholders, whether it's parents, whether it's caregivers, whether it's administrators, and like say, this is our red herring, or this is the thing that we're really going to work on. This is our clarion call. Let's make sure that our kids are reading when they leave fifth grade at a level to where they can pursue the dreams of their choice.
So, for schools and organizations who would like to consult with you, how do they get in touch?
They can email me, drbfoster1@gmail.com. That's me. Or they can get to the website, fosterbrilliance.org, and there's a place where they can click on there and just go ahead and tell me what it is that they want to talk about, and then I'll get back to them.
Dr. Foster, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. Your work reminds us of the transformative power of education and the potential each of us has to make a meaningful impact. We wish you continued success in your journey, and we look forward to seeing the ripple effects of your initiatives in education systems across the country.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast, so I feel good. Thank you for reaching out. Mindset is everything, and I wish you continued success. And I got plenty of people for you to talk to if you need to, and I appreciate you.
I will definitely take you up on that, and thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.